its dual approach of peace diplomacy and ships in Africa. And the DRC leaders say they're on board. Throughout our stay here, we've heard government officials saying it's time for the world's traditional perception of DRC as only a place of conflict and blood diamonds to end, and that a new Congo that's respected among nations is emerging. One of the richest countries in the world, with the resolve to be in full control of its resources and its political destiny. Legitimate aspirations which they believe the ties with Qatar can help achieve. Mohammed Val, Al Jazeera, Kinshasa.
Marjorie Taylor Greene, one of Donald Trump's most ardent supporters, has announced her resignation from the U.S. Congress after a recent fallout with the president. Greene explained her decision in a video posted on X. Her relationship with Trump soured after she criticized his reluctance to order the release of files on convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Greene says she'll step down on January 5th. Charlotte, North Carolina, is the latest U.S. city to face raids on immigrants suspected of being in the United States country unlawfully. A massive operation by federal immigration agents began there last weekend. The crackdown officially ended Thursday, but some immigration and customs enforcement agents are still there. John Hendren reports from Charlotte.
This is the protesters' answer to Operation Charlotte's Web. The federal immigration operation netted hundreds of people. Some of them later turned out to be U.S. citizens who then had to be released. And that is just part of what angers these demonstrators.
Soy ciudadano americano.
Willie Aceituno says this was the second time he'd been stopped. In a few minutes, he was arrested and released after proving he was an American citizen. The crackdown by agents that began on Saturday follows raids by the administration of Republican President Donald Trump on other sanctuary cities, which don't prosecute undocumented immigrants, and, like Charlotte, are controlled by Democrats: Los Angeles, Chicago, and Portland, Oregon. The Department of Homeland Security insists that the Border Patrol and Immigration and Customs Enforcement agencies are focusing on deporting criminals. This is Manolo's Bakery. Normally, it would have 25 employees working away here, but the owner, Manolo Betancourt, saw some ICE raids outside, and that prompted him to close this place. And he's allowed us to come in to ask him why. Now, Manolo, why did you close the bakery?
Because fear. I saw how these people were jumping over the pedestrians, could be my customers, or my employees, or even my family, throwing the people down to the floor, handcuffed and put them inside for cars. Unmarked cars, people with their faces covered, and that's it, they're gone. So I'm not risking my people, I'm not risking my immigrant community.
We spoke to Charlotte's only Republican council member. You said that immigration authorities should coordinate with state and local officials in order to minimize the disruption to the community. How did they do?
Well, they didn't notify us, and we weren't aware they were coming. We started to hear through indirect means, not notification, that they were coming. There was a lot of unrest. It's disruptive.
There are those who welcome the federal occupation.
I want everybody here to be paying taxes and to live free and do what they want, but I also want them to be legal.
Operation Charlotte's Web might be over, but the protests continue. These critics of the immigration crackdown want to send the message that aggressive tactics by federal agents are not welcome here. John Hendren, Al Jazeera, Charlotte, North Carolina.
UN climate negotiations in Brazil have been extended as delegates remain divided on plans to phase out of fossil fuels. Governments attending the COP30 summit are looking to reach a deal to prevent global temperatures from exceeding 1.5 degrees above pre-industrial levels. Monica Yanakiev is following developments from Rio de Janeiro.
This is what the negotiators are trying to do now, to approach their positions, but there is a very strong division. big divisive point is financing the transition. Developing countries say that they need money from the rich. They're more vulnerable to climate change. If there's a flood in their countries, well, their infrastructure is easily destroyed, so they would need the backing of the richer countries to be able to face the consequences of this climate change. So there's a lot being discussed right now as we speak, and negotiators say that this might likely continue throughout the weekend.
Peru's Supreme Court is set to make a crucial ruling that could have widespread implications on the biodiversity-rich Paracas National Reserve. The court has been asked to allow industrial fishing within the reserve. There are fears it could lead to large-scale fishing in other protected areas. But commercial fishers deny there will be an impact on the ecosystem. Mariana Sanchez reports from Paracas.
Paracas, a precious national reserve, is home to a millenary culture and a vital refuge for thousands of species, from migrating seagulls and sea lions to whales and penguins. The anchovy is what keeps most of them alive, but that may change. The National Fisheries Society wants to change regulations that have kept industrial fishing out of Paracas and other protected areas for more than 20 years. Lucio Anco takes tourists to the Ballestas Islands nearly every day. He says the bird and sea lion population here is only beginning to recover from El Niño phenomenon, an avian flu that devastated herds and flocks 3 years ago. And now this.
Every country wants to develop its economy using all of its natural resources. These protected areas were created for a purpose. If industrial fishing is allowed, it will be the complete end for these species.
Fishermen are also alarmed. Their leader, Jose Hernandez, says one industrial ship catches the equivalent of 100 artisanal boats.
Everything is going to be at risk: socioeconomic activity, fishing, and mariculture. And logically, the extermination of these resources will cause that activity to collapse. Tourism will collapse. We are facing a tremendous crisis.
The fisheries represents nearly 1% of Peru's GDP. The government says it is the fastest growing industry in the country. It employs more than 400,000 people. Only 8% of all of Peru's ocean area is within a protected zone. The Paracas Reserve reaches up to 26 nautical miles. The fisheries say fishing there will not affect the ecosystem. The fisheries argue there must be a balance between industrial fishing and conservation, but critics say industrial fishing can be done in more than 90% of Peru's 200 miles from the coast, not in reserves.
Even if it's well managed and generally sustainable, industrial fishing will definitely affect food availability and refuge areas due to the large volumes of anchovy it catches.
The final Supreme Court ruling threatens to compromise all of Peru's protected areas, setting a precedent to marine and land national reserves, which critics say are crucial to their own survival. Mariana Sanchez, Al Jazeera, Paracas.
All right, that's it from me, Mohammed Jamjoum. My colleague Bernard Smith will be here with more news after Fault Lines. Thanks for watching.
He was 17. Germán was recruited to join an offshoot of the FARC, an armed group that has fought the Colombian state for decades. His parents rescued him, but those who leave these groups often walk away with a target on their back. Germán lived in the Cauca region of southwest Colombia. It's part of the territory of the Nasa indigenous people. Armed groups are fighting over this area because it's key to the country's drug trade. A peace deal that many had hoped would end decades of war is unraveling. Now these groups are expanding and recruiting children and teenagers to fill their ranks.
recogemos muertos cada 8, cada 15 días. Jóvenes, guardias, comunidad. Él era Germán Andrés, trabajador, artista. No mataron a un bandido, mataron a un artista. Y entonces por eso nuestra comunidad está bastante dolida. Yo sé que muchos no lo conocían, pero muchos lo hicieron por la inconformidad que hay en nuestro territorio. Porque a mí me parece que es injusto que tengan que aparecer 4 hombres armados hasta los dientes para matar a un muchacho que no tenía un corta uñas para defenderse. Eso no sé si se llama guapesa o se llama cobardía. Cobardía. ¿Cómo se llama? Cobardía. Y si de aquí a mañana por estas palabras tengo que pagar, pues pagaré y estaré encima de mi hijo. 3 trompetas y un piano y una guitarra. Esas eran las armas. Y le silenciaron la vida y yo sé que
We're in the Cauca region. This is one of the front lines of Colombia's long-running conflict. There are several armed groups fighting for control of this area. There's graffiti everywhere that read to bring your car windows down or you'll be shot.
Germán's hometown, Toribio, is controlled by a faction.
Que ellos llegan y me dicen, usted está buscando que yo la mate. Usted lo que anda buscando es que yo la mate. Yo le dije, igual, se murió Jesucristo, no se va a morir Liliana Ramos en este momento. Yo no le tengo miedo, le dije así. Mentiras, sí sentía mucho miedo.
The commander agreed to let Germán go back with his family on the condition that he not join any other armed groups.
Pues así fue, el muchacho se puso a trabajar, siguió practicando la trompeta, estaba escalando, siguió con su negocio, empezó con el negocio de salchipapas y la volqueta trabajando.
But in August, Germán unknowingly delivered food to a house where members of another armed group were staying. They were rivals of the faction he had left.
Que él nunca pensó que esas salchipapas eran para ellos, o sea, que esas salchipapas...
The local indigenous authority intercepted FARC radio transmissions. They revealed that Germán's former group planned to kill him. Germán's father went to the FARC to find out what was happening.
Y yo también busqué la conversa y ellos me mintieron porque me dijeron que él no debía nada, que podía trabajar tranquilo. Esa razón que empezaba a investigar, yo me confié mucho. Y lastimosamente esa confianza me mató a mi hijo.
At the funeral, you had very strong words against Germán's killers. Aren't you afraid?
La muerte de mi hijo me dio más valor. Y si Dios no lo quiera llegan, pues, y me hacen algo, pues, estaré con mi hijo, pero estaré orgulloso de que...
Vamos, viejo. Vamos.
It's been less than 1 week since Germán was buried. And now his older brother Brainar has heard that the men who killed Germán may be coming for him next. The family makes a quick decision to leave.
Pero hay muchas personas, como uno dice, que se le acercan a uno. Mira que están diciendo esto. Cuídate, ve qué vas a hacer. Toma la decisión de sacarme antes de que de pronto quieran cogerme. Por cogerme a mí, intenten arremeter contra mi familia o intenten hacer algo contra mí.
The family escaped in bulletproof cars driven by the indigenous guard, the local authorities here. Thousands of people in this region have also been forced to leave their homes in search of safety.
Han corrido la cortinita de la ventana, está en el portero para adentro, mira. Están llegando a la casa.
Los carros amanecieron pinchados en el garaje. No, los que las iban a transportar.
Ah, sí.
Ahora hay que despinchar. Lastimosamente, simplemente por ser el hermano o el más allegado, van a decir que de pronto yo también voy a hacer algo, que de pronto me voy a vengar, que de pronto y los más sencillos para ello es pues matarme o como hicieron con mi hermano. Ellos mismos dijeron no pasa nada y mira cómo me lo dejaron lleno de balas.
Toca salir, pues ya me toca salir porque yo no voy a permitir que acaben con la vida de mi otro hijo, ya no más. Me van a dejar sin hijos prácticamente. Acá en el Cauca siempre se pelea mucho por los hijos, ¿no? Y cuando son varones más.
In the past year, most of the children who were recruited to Colombia's armed groups were from the Cauca region, like Germán. They're trained to shoot guns, make landmines, and act as combat medics.
For weeks, we've been trying to talk to former child soldiers who managed to escape an armed group. We're heading to a secret location to talk to them, and we have to protect their identities because it's too dangerous for them to talk to us.
No, pues yo me uní voluntariamente y de los 10 años. Y acá mucho me decía pues que no me fuera para allá.
This boy is 15 years old now. He spent nearly 5 years with FARC dissidents and only escaped from the group in April.
Ay, no. Aguantaba mucho frío. Dormía mojado, sudado, cansado, pelado la espalda, con rajas en los pies, ampollas en los pies. Pues ya uno mirando bien, pues aquí uno se pone a pensar, pues, por no hacerle caso a los padres.
How many times were you involved in combat?
14. El más grande hubieron 21 muertos y 5 heridos. Sí, pues se jura, digamos, hacia el principio, pues uno sí tenía como nervios, miedo, por ahí, pero no, ya cuando tuve la segunda confrontación, ya no fue Era como si fuera un juego nomás. Y pues era feo también mirar cuando mataban a los compañeros.
Were there many children where you were?
Sí, allá había muchos muchachos. Y pues la mayoría eran puros muchachos de 10 para arriba, nomás de 10 años o 11. Y yo lo máximo que anduve fue con 110.
The boy told us that his commanders would order the executions.
It's not. I really do think the devil is in the details. You know, it clearly would be both unworkable and absurd.
Yeah.
You know, the notion that
that Mark Zuckerberg could go to jail.
Well, not that. That the United Kingdom is going to lodge an extradition request to the authorities in California because there's one piece of content they don't like which has appeared on, in Instagram in the UK. That would not. But to be fair, that's not actually what the bill, as my understanding, says. It says something quite different, which is if there's systemic and repeated failure to even cooperate with the regulator in question after repeated requests and I think then even a court order, at that point executives become liable. It seems to me that is not a wholly unreasonable approach to saying in the absolute extreme case that a sort of rogue company refuses to engage with, refuses to cooperate, doesn't make any even best efforts, even after the regulator has gone to court. I think it's somewhat difficult to then suggest that is.
The line I picked out was the individual has failed to take all reasonable steps to prevent that offence being committed. The offence being online harms, like it's all steps.
No, I don't think it is that. I think if you, to be fair to the bill, though I'm not a legislative lawyer, but I think to be fair to the bill, it is much more heavily caveated than that. Having said all of that, I do think all democracies, including the United Kingdom, always need to be very mindful that where they legislate is where other, sometimes less scrupulous jurisdictions might choose to follow. And so one of the things that I sometimes feel is lost in the debate in a place like the House of Commons is that if you overdo it in legislation, then it's very easy for the Iranian authorities or the other less scrupulous authorities say, well, if they're doing a version of this in legislation in democracy A, then why can't we do it in our country B? And that's one of the things I somewhat worry about sometimes, which is that the debate around controlling content online, which of course I understand the political instinct because it's all about exercising political sovereignty over things that your citizens see, can often almost accidentally aid and abet those people who actually want to censor speech around the world and pressure private companies to do their bidding. And that's why one needs to, I think, tread extremely carefully in taking on powers like the one that you've just cited.
bring it over to the United States for a bit. There's a fear among researchers and other experts that artificial intelligence could turbocharge misinformation and disinformation. And recently, you as well as some other tech executives had said that disinformation on platforms right now, even amid the rise of ChatGPT, isn't as bad as expected. What sorts of changes is Meta making to its algorithms and products to ensure that it's not caught off guard ahead of the 2024 election?
Yeah, so this is an adversarial space, right? So people who want to, but by the way, just to be sort of tediously designed to lead to disinformation, which is the much more
Further risks: life without freedom, without dignity, without justice.
European leaders, seen here meeting in Brussels earlier this week, are playing catch-up and trying not to panic. Kept in the dark, they say, about the peace proposal devised by the US and Russia for ending the war in Ukraine. A 28-point plan that Europe says it didn't know about, that ticks too many boxes on Moscow's wish list, does not punish Russia enough, and ignores European security concerns. The US is calling it a draft proposal, but it reportedly includes Kyiv making major territorial and military concessions. These include Ukraine ceding control of the entire mineral-rich Donbass region, including an area estimated to be around 6,500 square kilometers, which it still controls. The proposal also reduces the size of Ukraine's army and would block the deployment of foreign troops in the country and ban Kyiv from possessing long-range missiles. The Russian leader, in his first comment since the proposal was revealed, says the plan was first discussed before the summit in Alaska, where he met US President Donald Trump in August, and he blames Ukraine for the lack of progress.
We have the text of the proposal. We got it through our channels established with the US administration. It can be the foundation of a final peace resolution, but objectively, no one has discussed it with us. And I think I know why. I believe it is the same reason. The American administration still doesn't have the approval from the Ukrainian side. Ukraine is against us. It seems that Ukraine and its European allies are deluded by still dreaming of defeating Russia on the battlefield.
The US president says deadlines can be extended, but wants Ukraine to agree to the proposal by Thursday.
He'll have to like it, and if he doesn't like it, then, they should just keep fighting, I guess,
The suggestion that you made, though, was that if he doesn't accept it, that the U.S. would pull back its support for Ukraine.
Well, at some point he's going to have to accept something. He hasn't accepted. You remember right in the Oval Office not so long ago, I said, you don't have the cards.
Europe's top diplomat at the G20 summit meeting in South Africa called for a continuation of sanctions on Russia, which she said were biting. But there was little Ukraine or its European allies had not heard before.
We will discuss the situation both with European leaders and with leaders here in the sidelines of the G20. I will also reach out to President Zelensky to discuss the matter. Important is a key principle we have always upheld, and that is nothing about Ukraine without Ukraine.
The Ukrainian president was careful not to denounce the plan when he met top Pentagon officials in Kyiv on Thursday night. Volodymyr Zelensky cannot afford to anger a US president he has irritated before and who is often described as impatient to end the war. Zelensky knows he cannot give too much away and anger Ukrainians, who have lost so much during the near 4 years since Russia's full-scale invasion. No matter the losses, the costs and the future security of Europe, Zelensky and his European allies are under US pressure more than ever before. Charles Stratford, Al Jazeera.
As the peace plan is being considered, Russia has stepped up its attacks across Ukraine. It's also claiming to have taken over most of the strategic city of Pokrovsk in Donetsk, which Ukraine says is untrue. Milena Veselinovic reports.
The aftermath of an attack in Odessa. Fire crews containing the blaze and searching for survivors. This footage released by Ukraine's emergency services, who say Russian drones struck the southern city overnight on Thursday. In the east, Zaporizhia was also hit. 5 people were killed in this neighborhood as residents rushed in to help.
We started clearing the rubble. I saw a woman's head. Some women at the back were screaming, "Mum, Mum," but I didn't recognize her. I checked her pulse, but I couldn't feel it.
The west of the country wasn't spared either. Dozens of people were killed in Russian strikes in Ternopil, far from the front lines, but not from danger. Mourners gathered on Friday to honor the victims, many of whom died in a single building. A community distraught, as other people are still missing. Russia denies targeting civilians